angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
What if Jack the Ripper was never caught because Jack the Ripper wasn't human? Welcome to a special web exclusive on Skywatch TV. During the month of October, we're featuring programs that relate to the theme of the Halloween season, but also to a number of books just out from Defender Publishing and also from Rose Avenue Fiction. Joining me on the panel today as we discuss the Ripper and how spiritual warfare ties into one of the most famous unsolved series of murders in history is the CEO of Skywatch TV, author of the new book Saboteurs, Tom Horn.
Good to be here, but I know nothing when it comes to how Jack the Ripper is connected.
Spiritual warfare, though, that's...
well, you know a lot about that, so that's what really matters.
And the author of the Red Wing Saga, which uses the Ripper murders as a jumping-off point to teach spiritual warfare. Book 1, Blood Lies. Book 2, Blood Rights, now available. My best friend, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, sweetie pie.
Hi, love. So the Ripper murders were never officially solved.
Oh, no. You can read all sorts of memoirs by the various police people involved and the governmental people involved, and you'll see a wide if you have 10 Ripperologists in a room, you'll get 20 different opinions.
Mm-hmm. So sort of like Christians with eschatology.
Very much like that. But the problem is that even though there's a lot of evidence out there that you can actually go and look at the original notes that were taken by the investigators and the MEs, the medical examiners who were taking their notes as well, even from that, sorry, CSI would not be able to solve this problem. And I think it's because there's a spiritual aspect to it. So that's where I take this.
How do you frame it? I mean, without giving too much away in the books, for people who've not read Blood Lies or Blood Rights, how do you take that and use it as sort of like the, almost like the MacGuffin?
Well, that's actually what it is in many ways, because it really gets you started on teaching spiritual warfare. And this is something, Tom, you say, no, you know nothing about Jack the Ripper, but the fact is you understand spiritual warfare. And that's all. You talk about the Great Inception, you write nonfiction that teaches us. You wrote The Armand Gate that teaches this. This is all about the Watchers and how they worked with humans to hybridize humans, but most of it is about a way to, frankly, open up the abyss. That's their end game.
Yeah, and by the way, kudos to you, because all of the response that we've got on the first book, Blood Lies, so far, I mean, everything is a glowing report. And you know, I don't even read fiction, but I got hooked in the first book, and it's some of the best, it is literally some of the best novel writing I've ever read. But what I also love about it is it's kind of like the faction that, you know,
Mike Heiser.
Yeah,
Mike Heiser talks about, that everything in the book is actually based, every character in the book is actually based on a historical figure or things that they said or agencies that actually exist. But it's recognizing what Christians are really the best at, and that is that behind the governments of the earth, there is agents that are at work. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, and against the rulers of the darkness of this world. And even the word studies, right, into those Greek terms imply that some of those mean that these are agencies that are working behind governments, behind leaders and figures, right? So that's what I think makes these just over the top.
And you address that same issue in your upcoming book, Saboteurs. I mean, this idea, and so does Dr. Lieutenant Colonel McGinnis. He talks about the deep state, the shadows behind the governments. Well, that's exactly what I talk about in Blood Lies and Blood Rights, the Red Wing Saga. And it gets into your book because while I was doing my research for it, I found out that Sir Charles Warren, who served as police commissioner for 2 years, he was in office, resigned the day before Mary Kelly was killed, before she was found killed. He discovered something on the top of Mount Hermon that connects to it all.
Yeah.
You researched that as well. Tell everybody about that.
Well, I was going to say that for the next program, but since you bring it up,
No,
we'll go ahead.
bring it up now.
We'll bring that out. It was fascinating to discover that Sir Charles Warren, who discovered Warren's Shaft, which is the water shaft through which David's general Joab climbed to get into the city of the Jebusites and made it the city of David, Jerusalem. But prior to that, a month prior to that, in September of 1869, he climbed Mount Hermon, 9,242 feet above sea level, and he found a temple on the very summit of Mount Hermon. Now, it had been known that it was there. There was a Presbyterian minister who 10 years earlier had gone and seen it. But what he found was something that Presbyterian minister missed, which was a stela measuring 18 inches wide, 12 inches deep, and 4 feet high. A 2-ton granite slab, or limestone slab, I believe it was, limestone.
It was limestone.
Yeah, and carved in ancient Greek, about 4th century BC, was a statement that said, by the order of the most high and holy God, or something to that effect, those who swore an oath proceed from here. Now, a scholar who's devoted his career to studying the Book of Enoch, George W.E. Nicholsburg of the University of Iowa, who's got what a lot of scholars consider to be the definitive commentary on the Book of Enoch, said this clearly refers to the Watchers. The question is, what God are they referring to, Most High and Holy God? Because this was Greek, 4th century BC, not referring to Jesus Christ, obviously, because Jesus of Nazareth hadn't been born yet. Probably not referring to Yahweh. Professor Nicholsburg thinks it was referring to Baal Hermon, the Lord of Hermon, or the Canaanite deity El, who supposedly lived in Mount Hermon with his 70 sons. Now, of course, that's also where, right, exactly, which is important because that's where Jesus was transfigured into a being of light and then came down the mountain, sent out the 70 disciples, or 72, depending on the translation you read. But either way, it works because Baal lived up there with his El and Baal, and then the 70. So 70 or 72, either way, it works. But it's interesting because from a historic standpoint, it's really curious because Warren brought the slab down, had to break it into 2 pieces to get, I don't think he intended to, but it broke into 2 pieces to get it down the mountain.
He had to cut it longitudinally in order to lighten enough to bring it down because it was way too heavy. Yeah. And even then it was very heavy, and on its way down it broke.
Still weighed more than a ton, right. They brought it down on mules.
He cut it down to about 4 inches deep.
Yeah, and it's now in the British Museum.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask is where is it now?
Exactly.
The British Museum, which of course is where they had that sequel to Night in the Museum. With
the magic tablet.
Or the magic tablet, right. Yeah. Now, there was a different tablet, but still, it's in Britain now. From a historic standpoint, it's really interesting that this shows that this was an event that was known, outside of, the Jewish community. But in a fictional standpoint, you can take it and run with it.
I'm glad you brought up the Jewish community because that's a major part of the historic Jack the Ripper, because beginning at about 1850s, and definitely during the Crimean War, Russia began implementing these pogroms. They were punishing the Jews who lived in various villages and even cities, and much of it stemmed from the assassination of their Tsar. And they were kicked out, essentially, and they fled Ukraine and Georgia and Eastern European nations and Russia, and they fled into mainly France and England. And much of the area they ended up in was in the East End. In fact, Spitalfields was almost 90% Jewish by the time the Ripper murders took place. There was a rumor going around that is addressed by one of their rabbis in a letter to the editor in one of the newspapers that addresses a couple of things. One of them is this notion that it was a Dybbuk, D-Y-B-B-U-K, who was killing the women. Dybbuk was the Yiddish name, the Jewish name for a spirit, possibly from someone who's died, that essentially attaches itself to a person, which means that person carries it with him or her. So anyone coming into England from elsewhere would have brought it in. The other rumor that was being addressed was that there was supposedly a law on the books in, I think it was in Ukraine, that said that if you were caught as a thief with magic candles, then you got a special punishment because these magic candles were created from the tallow of dead women's uteruses. Now the uteruses, the wombs, were missing in many of these women.
Huh, interesting.
Wow.
And so there was a rumor going around in the East End that that's what was going on, especially when it was believed that it was a Jew, so-called Leather Apron, that had killed everybody, killed these women. So the hyperbole, the fear that was being instilled was spiritual, not just within man's domain. I believe that there were spirits who were ramping things up, just as they do now on social media.
Well, and in addition to that, in your book, there's also a group of people, a secret society.
There are two.
And they're intentionally working with this supernaturalism.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, they're based on what we would generally call the Illuminati, and they had the specific name Red Wing. The reason they're called Red Wing is because their symbol is the Holy Spirit.
Now, what would you say, because
with a red thing on its wing, because they're killing the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
They hate the Holy Spirit's
and of
mission.
course, it's going to be interesting to see now you're bringing Blood Rights 2 in. How does that continue to play out, that storyline? That's going to be interesting.
It does indeed. And of course, the third book, The Blood is the Life, is a quote from Scripture.
I gotcha. But so some people that might be watching this program could have read the same article that I read this week, and I sent it over to you, where there's an author now who is saying that he found the grave, or he knows where Jack the Ripper is buried.
There has been a special that was on one of the History Channels or something about H.H. Holmes, who was a serial killer in Chicago in 1893. And his real name was Mudgett, and his descendant has been claiming, he wrote a book, and he's been making a claim that his ancestor was actually the Ripper. There are a lot of reasons why he wasn't, but the DNA evidence does point to the man in the grave really was H.H. Holmes. So that is indeed his ancestor buried there. But whether or not he was, no, don't think he was Ripper. I really don't.
Well, in our next segment, we'll come back, and I want to talk a little bit more about the nature of spiritual warfare and how it's taught in churches, because we have a tendency, I think, to be, as Christians as a whole, to believe that it's Satan and his minions are just demons that does whatever Satan's want. In other words, they're all on the same team, pulling in the same direction. And it seems that the spirit realm is a little more complicated than that. So we'll continue our discussion next time on this series of web exclusives from Skywatch TV as we lead up to Halloween. We're dealing with spiritual warfare, and we thank you for watching as we keep watch. With Tom Horn and Sharon Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. Get 2 free books on spiritual warfare when you order Blood Lies by Sharon K. Gilbert. Call 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.
The Trump administration is now vowing to crack down and punish deep state saboteurs.
Today, America is being manipulated through a Washington-based shadow government.
This is a war now, the deep state against you and the President of the United States.
The artificial chaos engineered by elites and advanced by enemies of democracy is being propagandized by a devoted media machine to take down President Trump.
I submit to you that the establishment that you talk about, the so-called deep state, exists on both sides, the left and the right, and President Trump is up against both of them.
But this is not the whole story. A much more sinister quest behind the deep state is at work to usher in a final world order.
He's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. You know, he hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He didn't belong to the secret society. The secret society.
They're trying to cheat you out of the future and the future that you want. They're trying to cheat you out of the leadership you want.
Globalists, secret societies, and world power brokers anticipate the insidious arrival of a messianic strongman they call the Gray Champion. Now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn joins a senior analyst from the Pentagon and a retired police detective to bring you the shocking truth behind an ancient cabal almost too fantastic to believe.
If these forces are successful, this country will not survive.
They have a plan for your future, but you can know their secret and stop them in their tracks. Get ready, saboteurs, how secret deep state occultists are manipulating American society toward a final world order.
America is being manipulated by sinister occult forces and a Washington-based shadow government. But now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn is joined by senior analyst from the Pentagon, Colonel Bob McGinnis, and retired police detective Carl Gallups to expose these nefarious forces. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Saboteurs Collection. When you order the new books, Saboteurs, Gods and Thrones, and The Deeper State from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive free of charge for a limited time the exclusive oversized hardback collector editions of the classic 2-volume set, The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, and The Fallen Angels and the Heroes of Mythology. These two timeless masterpieces, finally in print again after 100 years, are the perfect gift for the scholar or Bible student in your life, and hold a retail value of over $60 all by themselves, but are included absolutely free when you purchase the limited time Saboteurs Collection. But that's not all. You'll also receive the never-before-aired DVD Off the Record, featuring exclusive interviews with Dr. Thomas Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and Detective Carl Gallups, further exposing the dark secrets of globalist elites and how to stop them in their tracks. This content is only available in this exclusive offer and will not be aired anywhere else. Finally, you'll also receive The Shadow Hand, the over 24-hour Steve Quayle and Tom Horn definitive audio series on CD. This audio collection discloses the terrifying truth behind the infamous WikiLeaks dumps, the shadow government, and so much more. This unprecedented special offer sold separately holds a retail value of over $175. Yours now for only $29.99 plus shipping and handling. The holiday gift season is coming, and you won't find this collection anywhere else. So don't delay. Order the Saboteurs Collection for somebody you love now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology. Conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
The spirits who rebelled against their creator may not all be playing on the same team. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. We're talking about spiritual warfare in this series of special web-exclusive broadcasts available only at skywatchtv.com, the Skywatch TV channels on Roku and Apple TV, and the Skywatch TV mobile app. You won't see these on the network, our network broadcasts. Joining me as we discuss this, the author of the new book, Saboteurs, and our CEO, Tom Horn.
Good to be here again.
And the author of the new series of novels, The Red Wing Saga, Book 1, Blood Lies, Book 2, Blood Rights. My best friend, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, sweetie.
Hi, love. One of the things you've done in the series, which is something we have talked about between us for quite some time, is that these fallen angels, if you will, or the small g gods, who God, the Creator, Yahweh, condemned. Psalm 82 said, because you have ruled unjustly, though you are God's sons of the Most High, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. Why do we have this idea that they're all on the same team, that because they're opposed to God, that they're all allied with one another.
That makes no sense, does it?
I mean, if they've got the chutzpah to rebel against the creator of the universe, why do we think they would have any problem trying to backstab one another?
Exactly, and I think that's one reason in mythology, at least, and you and I both believe, and I know you do as well, that what we call mythology is actually a retelling of what is real history.
Right. I'll be talking about that in Oklahoma City. Yeah.
They were battling each other all the time, and
Sure.
if that's indeed what happened, then the primordial gods were rebelled against by their kids, and the grandkids rebelled against the kids. And
Well, we see it in the book of Daniel, where the prince of Greece goes to war against the prince of Persia.
yeah, oh yeah.
So it's biblical.
It is biblical, and so I think when you look at this massive game of spiritual risk that's taking
And your
place
spiritual
in the world,
thrones.
yes, it's exactly what it is. It's pretty clear when you look at, and it could be that when the Lord said that nation will rise up against nation, he was speaking not only of the generals and armies within those nations and tribes, but also the spirits behind them.
Absolutely, I believe that. And of course, you've already mentioned several different things. It goes back to what was going on with the Watchers, what was going on in the Divine Council. You have spirits there that are, in essence, they're getting ready to compete with one another, right, for supremacy. The whole battle of Armageddon, the whole battle of the end times is still this contest that is going on. Carl Gallup's just put out his new book, Gods and Thrones, right? It's kind of that idea. Remember some years ago, the book that came out that was called This Present Darkness?
Oh, yes,
And remember how the entities, they're all competing with each other in there, right? These fallen angels and demons.
Yeah.
But long before that, the screw tape letters, right? So, yeah, I think that is theologically sound to imagine that when Paul is talking about principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, it's a kind of rank and file. I mean, you can almost think of it as an army where you've got sergeants and you've got colonels and whatever. And in, like any army, there's jealousy, there's envy among the ranks, right? Sometimes there's even sabotage among the ranks. How many times in war have we wondered how one of the leaders, on the battlefield wound up getting shot in the back, and it didn't appear that it came from an enemy's gun, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of competition in the natural world happens. It definitely also happens in the spirit world.
And I suspect that they argue, too, over what the meaning of Scripture is, because many of the things in prophecy that we argue over as humans is also unclear to the spirit realm, and so they're trying to figure out exactly what the Lord meant when he said the following. They couldn't figure it out when Christ came the first time.
That's right, who
They
the
missed
lords
it.
of this world would not have crucified if they'd have known, right? If they'd have known, they didn't understand. Well, they wouldn't, I wouldn't think that at the end they say, look, we're all going to die like men, let's give it the best we got, right? They still must be deluded enough to believe that they have some kind of chance, right? If they marshal their arms together, they're going to somehow become victorious. Between now and that day, though, there's this battle for the souls of men, which is also part of it. That's not the only thing. Not every demon out there is concerning itself with one of us, right? Sometimes, you've heard preachers that have said, really? You think the devil himself is bothering to mess around with you, right? He's got some little imps that are they go around dealing with this kind of stuff. But when you start becoming a threat, when you really do understand that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, right? Bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. When you start becoming that kind of a threat, when you're a Derek and Sharon Gilbert and you've dedicated your life to ministry and you begin vocalizing and you begin exposing the deeds of darkness, now you're at a different level, right? And you also understand, therefore, that you are constantly covering yourself in prayer. And people need to be careful when they're talking about spiritual warfare that I'm not talking about formulas. I'm not talking about counting beads, with all respect to some people, or for that matter, evangelicals who think that they're going to stand in their room and command the darkness to the north, south, east, and west to do a particular thing. But if their own hearts are not clean, if they're lifted up in pride and think of themselves more than what they ought to and look down their nose at other Christians, if they're online trolling everybody they can and hurting people, I don't care how many formulas they go through at home, they're already being manipulated by darkness. So all of this really begins when it's antithetical to what brought down Lucifer. I will exalt my throne above this. It's pride goeth before a fall, right? So the opposite of that, I've seen people that they don't have it right. They don't really know how to pray, in my opinion, most effectively, and yet they are most effective. And the reason they are is because they're humble, they're contrite before God, they're sincere, and that is like a bulldozer in the spiritual realm, right? It just makes up the difference on everything else. So.
It does. That's so well said. You mentioned demons and how they're not all sort of one accord, and there may even be layers of demons. For those people who are not really in the know as to what a watcher is, what a demon is, what a fallen angel is, can you explain
Yeah,
those
I mean,
to us?
and you know, years ago, right? So I was actually writing a paper. This is a long time ago, so I can't remember any of the details, but I remember the paper was on this question: where did demons come from, right? And so I was going through all the different theories. Well, some people believe that there was a pre-Adamic race, and that when all of that got wiped out in this prehistory before Adam and Eve, the spirits of those human-like persons became what are the demons on the earth today, and that this might even explain why they want to be in a body, because those spirits were meant to be housed in some kind of physical form. There's some similar theories to that go into this idea that the giants, the offspring of the Watchers, that when the giants died and their spirits went into the underworld, they actually, some of them were left on the earth. Some of the apocryphal books talk about this, the Book of Jubilees, I think Enoch does. Yes. That a portion of them were left on the earth, and they are the demons that are on earth now. And a lot of the people we know, I think, accept that as the origin of demons. But over a long period of time, what I came to believe that it isn't one explanation. And this is why you have classifications from demons, because there could be some entities, you might think of them as fallen angels. There could be others that these are the spirits and the offspring, right, of the giants. So there could be several situations in which any one of these theories, or maybe all of them in one way or another, are kind of right? That makes up this invisible assembly.
Where was it we recently, where was it we recently, you and I recently saw the information that the Nephilim themselves were capable of breeding?
There is a newer translation. In fact, I mentioned in the previous program, George W.E. Nicholsburg, who combined a number of different extant texts of the Book of Enoch. We have some from Egyptian, Coptic, others from Ethiopian, and I think there's like a couple from Eastern Europe that have been found, and basically compiled them into the translation of the Book of Enoch that he's got. And in 1 Enoch chapter 6, which is the section of Enoch that deals with the Watchers landing on Mount Hermon, there is another group of offspring, like the first generation Watchers would produce the Nephilim, and from the Nephilim was produced another group, and of course the name of this other group is escaping me at the moment.
I know, I can't recall
but
what
it's
it is
it's a
either.
it's a Greek term that basically means glorious ones, I think. And I'll have to look this up again because. Yeah,
sorry, I didn't give you a heads up that I was going to ask you that question, but it just came to mind.
But yeah, it was something that caught me by surprise, and I included it in my talk at not Boise, but yeah, I guess it was.
But it makes sense if you think of the Watchers having offspring, and then if you equate the Watchers to the Titans,
right?
Then the Titans had offspring, the Olympians, and the Olympians had offspring.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, and also, you know, I know lots of scholars look at it. The Watchers created the Nephilim. The Nephilim, they go about raping women and whatever. They're having offspring. These become the Gibborim. And so you have the Gibborim, the Sansunim, or whatever they call them, the Anunnaki, Anakim. And that this might also explain why, over time, they seem to be shorter in height. That is, they're basically breeding down, like Nita's miniature horses, right? Kind of a really bad example there, but
the little dachshunds.
But yeah, yeah, the Nephilim dachshund. But,
that's too scary for Halloween. We can't go there.
But I mean, that would kind of agree, though, with what this writer is discussing. If he's bringing together these different attacks and comparing them one to each other. Yeah. Now, in the occult world. You know, it is also believed that if you could bring about the raising of one of these underworld spirits, Raphaim even carries with it this term to be healed, as in to be healed from death, right? So there are those who do believe that it's actually proper interpretation to say that Isaiah was actually praying, let not the dead live, let not the giants rise again. That's what the Dewey version translates that there is an idea that if you could bring about the incarnation, well, and Cush begat Nimrod, and Nimrod began to be a Gibborim. That's a pretty fascinating statement. Yeah. And even the Hebrew there implies something was happening in his genetic material, which kind of echoes back to where in the Old Testament it says all flesh was corrupt, that something was happening in the genetics, and that as that was happening, these, what, are they becoming fit receptacles for incarnation by the spirits of the dead to rise up in them? The Raphaim also, the shades, right? The shades of the dead, which, because we're talking about Halloween and all that, also connects to the idea of ghosts and haunted houses and all of that kind of thing.
And vampires and werewolves.
But in any case, there is this belief, you know, we started a couple of weeks ago talking about Aleister Crowley and spirit cooking. There is this belief that if you could become sufficiently possessed by this underworld supernaturalism, that could translate through the bloodlines. Some of the occult beliefs about the divine rights of kings and all that, they follow these bloodlines back through the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons and all that, that would grant you particular kinds of powers, right, as a result of your blood. So, and
I get into all of that in this series. I get into all of that. I don't use the term. In fact, I think one of the fallen angels uses the term epigenetics at one point, and they just look at him like, what? Oh, yeah, you don't know that term yet.
It's only Tuesday. Eliud, that was the name I was looking. E-L-I-O-U-D, Eliud.
Yes.
Which means God of Majesty, according to the Strong's Greek. So,
are we going to do another one of these? Because if we do, we need to get into the Cthulhu sort of connection to all of this.
Right. And that's kind of how we stretch from that into, or connect from that into the current ancient aliens theory.
We just start with that and go into aliens.
Yeah. So, well, we're leading up to Halloween as we talk about spiritual warfare. Again, some new releases from Defender Publishing that you should add to your reference library. Saboteurs by Tom Horn, Gods and Thrones by Carl Gallups, The Deeper State by Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis. And then if you're more inclined to read for enjoyment, but looking for something that will also educate as well as entertain, The Red Wing Saga, Blood Lies and Blood Rights by Sharon K. Gilbert. And then coming up after Halloween, Josh Peck and I have a new book coming called The Day the Earth Stands Still, which connects all of this occult and spiritual warfare to the current ancient aliens and UFO phenomena. I can see you thinking. We thank you for watching as we keep watch. With Tom Horn and Sharon K. Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. Get 2 free books on spiritual warfare when you order Blood Lies by Sharon K. Gilbert. Call 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.
The Trump administration is now vowing to crack down and punish deep state saboteurs.
Today, America is being manipulated through a Washington-based shadow government.
This is a war now, the deep state against you and the President of the United States.
The artificial chaos engineered by elites and advanced by enemies of democracy is being propagandized by a devoted media machine to take down President Trump.
I submit to you that the establishment that you talk about, the so-called deep state, exists on both sides, the left and the right, and President Trump is up against both of them.
But this is not the whole story. A much more sinister quest behind the deep state is at work to usher in a final world order.
He's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. You know, he hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He didn't belong to the secret society. The secret society.
They're trying to cheat you out of the future and the future that you want. They're trying to cheat you out of the leadership you want.
Globalists, secret societies, and world power brokers anticipate the insidious arrival of a messianic strongman they call the Gray Champion. Now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn joins a senior analyst from the Pentagon and a retired police detective to bring you the shocking truth behind an ancient cabal, almost too fantastic to believe.
If these forces are successful, this country will not survive.
They have a plan for your future, but you can know their secret and stop them in their tracks. Get ready, saboteurs, how secret deep state occultists are manipulating American society toward a final world order.
America is being manipulated by sinister occult forces and a Washington-based shadow government. But now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn is joined by senior analyst from the Pentagon, Colonel Bob McGinnis, and retired police detective Carl Gallups to expose these nefarious forces. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Saboteurs Collection. When you order the new books, Saboteurs, Gods and Thrones, and The Deeper State from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive free of charge for a limited time the exclusive oversized hardback collector editions of the classic 2-volume set, The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, and The Fallen Angels and the Heroes of Mythology. These two timeless masterpieces, finally in print again after 100 years, are the perfect gift for the scholar or Bible student in your life, and hold a retail value of over $60 all by themselves, but are included absolutely free when you purchase the limited time Saboteurs Collection. But that's not all. You'll also receive the never-before-aired DVD Off the Record, featuring exclusive interviews with Dr. Thomas Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and Detective Carl Gallups, further exposing the dark secrets of globalist elites and how to stop them in their tracks. This content is only available in this exclusive offer and will not be aired anywhere else. Finally, you'll also receive The Shadow Hand, the over 24-hour Steve Quayle and Tom Horn definitive audio series on CD. This audio collection discloses the terrifying truth behind the infamous WikiLeaks dumps, the shadow government, and so much more. This unprecedented special offer sold separately holds a retail value of over $175. Yours now for only $29.99 plus shipping and handling. The holiday gift season is coming, and you won't find this collection anywhere else. So don't delay. Order the Saboteurs Collection for somebody you love now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.